Welcome to Ren's Philanthropic Insights video podcast series, made to help financial advisors make the most of their clients' charitable giving. I'm your host, Kim Ledger, Ren's VP of Complex Assets, and I've brought in one of our experts from Ren, Kyle Christopherson, SVP of Client Growth, to dive into the topic of different ways advisors can leverage DAFs for long-term impact. A little bit about Kyle. He has over 20 years of experience in pretty much every aspect of creating and administering various charitable gift instruments. He's a frequent speaker at national and regional conferences, educating financial professionals and plan giving officers on how to create effective charitable planning strategies. Welcome back, Kyle.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, our third session today.
Third session.
Yeah, so we have talked about charitable giving in general. We've talked about what a DAF is because of their popularity.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about having that conversation with your clients as a financial advisor, having those charitable conversations and why it's important.
Absolutely. Sure.
And as you know, I spent a number of years, we don't need to state a number, but I've spent a number of years in the financial services industry. And for me, when it was pretty natural, when we were bringing in a new client to have that charitable conversation, it was pretty easy, as part of that fact-finding portion of the conversation, just to bring that in. So, but what happens, if you've had a client for a long time? How do you broach that subject? How would you approach that?
Yeah, and I've spoken with a lot of financial advisors, and everyone's got their own way of working with their clients to get information, getting to know them a little bit better, right?
Right.
And like you mentioned, an ideal time is when you're having that first conversation with them and going through the initial discovery. And when you're going, through that discovery session, you're talking about their estate planning goals, retirement planning goals, college funding, getting all that information together. But it's at that time where you really want to start diving into some of the charitable planning goals, determining if that client has charitable interests, if they're looking to support charity long-term through the family, how they're supporting the charities that they believe in and want to make sure are supported into the future. But inevitably, sometimes maybe you're just getting engaged with charitable planning as an advisor, you're learning about the benefits, and now you want to go back to your existing clients and start talking about charitable planning and seeing if there's additional value you can provide your clients. So what a lot of advisors that I've worked with that have gone and completed is just going back to maybe it's a check-in meeting. Maybe it's, twice a year you get with your clients, you review their goals. Here's where you're at, progress towards your goals. Has anything changed? And at that time, you can bring up some conversations related to charitable planning to understand where they are at. And again, going back to episode 1, when we're talking about the popularity of charitable giving, keep in mind, again, when we had mentioned that roughly 90% of clients are charitably motivated, right? They're already giving.
Right.
So if they're not speaking to you as the financial advisor, they're speaking to someone else. So we want to make sure that as the financial advisor, you're providing all of the resources and advice to your clients to make sure they're, achieving all of their goals, not just from the financial, but the charitable aspect as well.
Right. And it makes it, if they're going to be giving anyway, help them do it in a cost-effective and tax-efficient way, right?
Absolutely. Be strategic about it. Exactly. Which is why we always say, give wisely. That's right. Give wisely. That's where it comes from.
Well, what are there specific questions that you can think of that you would ask a client?
Yeah, I think it's, right out of the gate, it's, just asking them, do you give to charity? How frequently do you give to charity? But you want to make sure, as with any other discovery questions, I'm sure when you
I got to tell you, I did that once. I said, do you give to charity? And the answer that I got was yes.
Yes. Yes, no. So you're not going to get a lot of information with it. You want to use a lot of open-ended questions, but go into the subject of talking about charitable, where their charitable motivation is. Are they giving currently to charity? How often? And get into that, but also start diving into, what type of charities do you support? And ask them why. And, I think that's the first step for clients really opening up and going, wow, you're going into a deeper relationship now with the client, because now it's not at the surface. Now you're really understanding what really makes them tick and what they're passionate about, what their beliefs are.
Yeah.
Because that's typically where individuals are going to gravitate to those charities that are matching their beliefs. And
exactly, I had a client who had a brother who died of a rare cancer.
Yeah.
And she earmarked $7.5 million for a research project.
Right.
And it was fantastic. So yeah, I learned a lot about that client through that.
Yeah, and it's a whole other aspect that otherwise you would never have known about,
Exactly.
right? And I think what a lot of times advisors find out from having these conversations is, wow, because I have the deeper relationship, now I feel like I've got a strong relationship that now my client is more satisfied. Now they're going out and producing more referrals. And so there's a lot of advantages to doing that. But I think one of the questions that is also important when you're talking about charitable planning is, a great question that I came across was, what was the most meaningful gift you've ever made and why? And that's another way to get into real great conversation with your client to understand it better.
Great emotional connection with a client.
Absolutely. And of course, as they're talking with you, you want to piggyback on those answers and responses and dig a little bit deeper. But it's important to find out, how frequently they're giving to charity. How are they given to charity?
Right.
Is it cash? Is it checks? Are they transferring securities? But it's not just that. They could be volunteering their time.
Oh, that's a good point.
And
especially that next generation.
Absolutely. So a lot of times,
different generations, but yeah.
Families as a unit are going to go over to a charitable organization and they volunteer their time as a family. Maybe it's a food pantry. Maybe it's, putting together Thanksgiving meals during the holidays, whatever it might be, but they do it as a family. And it's kind of a way to build your values. So that's important to understand the how. And we talked about the why, which charities they are supporting and why. And then also determine, how are they doing that today beyond just cash or checks or securities, but is there a structure that they have in place, such as a private foundation, a donor advised fund? Do they have a tool that you're not aware of?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Absolutely.
Because maybe they set that up on their own, not thinking that you could help them. So that's a very good point.
Yeah.
There was a client of mine that he was a veteran, and he was really passionate about the schooling that he had received. He was president of a company when he retired. And so when he retired, he set up a scholarship fund for other veterans. So people coming back after their tour, they were able to apply for the scholarship. And that was really meaningful to him. And he would get teary-eyed.
Yeah.
And when he talked about it, it was just really important to him.
Yeah, and that's a great success story. I think something else that I've noticed as well is there's more and more demand for, the family giving plan.
Yeah.
Especially with the higher net worth families, they want to formalize their charitable giving strategy and formalize it as far as which charities that they want to support, how much they want to support in a given period of time, how they're going to do that. Is it with the parents? Is it with the children? But it gets the entire family engaged and moving towards a common goal for that, for the charitable giving aspect. So that's something else to consider as you're talking with your clients. You might want to formalize that with the family giving plan as an additional resource.
And there's an advisor that I work with that does that with their clients. They formalize some sort of giving structure, or they memorialize it in a document saying, here are the charities that we want to support and what we how we want to go about that on an annual basis.
Right.
And that's just part of the DAF, what their process when they set up the donor advised fund.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
It is. Are there benefits to the financial advisor for talking about charitable giving?
Yeah, and we've mentioned this a few times in our prior episodes as well, but anytime we're talking about charitable giving strategies with our clients, you get to know them better, it creates that deepening of the relationship. And that helps to, make sure that relationship is going to be strong for the future. But depending on the charitable giving structure, you have the opportunity to start engaging with the next generation.
We all want that.
Absolutely, because if you look at the statistics, I think it's, Kim, is it around 80% when the client passes away and it goes to the children, 80% of those assets typically are going to go to another financial advisor. And, to protect yourself against that as a financial advisor, to make sure that you are the go-to person for that family, regardless of generation, you can start building that relationship with the next generation with this charitable giving strategy. For example, donor advice fund is a great component of that charitable giving strategy where the children can be the successor grant advisors, like we spoke about in the prior episode. And now, as a financial advisor, you're going to start having meetings and conversations with them because you're typically the one that's going to be managing those assets of the donor advice fund. So going into the next generation, building that bridge, just providing your clients with a tax advantage solution. And
especially if you're a holistic wealth management firm.
Exactly.
I know that's really, it's just part of it.
It absolutely
especially
is.
Ultra high net worth clients. I think you said earlier that it was 90% of ultra high net worth clients are giving to charity anyway.
Correct. So to, providing those tax advantage solutions, charitably based, but that, not a lot of other financial advisors are going to be offering out there. So you're providing them something that's unique, and, providing additional value. And I think overall, what we have also seen from the statistics that we've looked at is when financial advisors are incorporating charitable planning into their practice, you're seeing a higher satisfaction rate with their clients. That could be attributable back to the stronger relationship. You're seeing increased assets under management.
That's true.
And you're also seeing more referrals as a result of that satisfaction going up and that stronger relationship. Now clients are more trusting of you to be able to bring in more of their friends and family members to you for advice.
Gosh, that's a great point.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of advisors that we've worked with, and I know, Kim, you've worked with some too, that they start working in charitable planning and they just fall in love with it.
They do. Then they become serial DAF providers.
Exactly. And I've spoken with many financial advisors who are like, wow, there's just a different dynamic to it, different conversation, and the tone of the conversation is different. And they want to specialize just in charitable planning and focus a lot of their efforts on getting more charitable planning clients. So
yeah, that is great. Well, I appreciate your time today. And let's get together again. I've got next episode. Let's talk about how to tell, which of your clients would make great DAF prospects. Or
how to identify the best client. Absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk about that next time.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Okay, good. Thanks, everyone, for watching, or if you turned in via podcast, thanks for listening. If you want to learn more about Ren and how we might be able to help with your philanthropic program needs, visit reninc.com or email us at consulting@reninc.com. We'd also love to hear if you have questions or topics about planned giving you want us to talk about. And of course, don't miss the great information we have in our Advisors Philanthropic Insights newsletter. Sign up at reninc.com/advisor insights. Find all the links mentioned in the show in the description. And you'll find expert tips daily on our social channels. Check it out. Until next time, I'm Kim Ledger. Give wisely.